Season 1 of Invincible was an absolute delight to watch. It felt so fresh, unique, and unlike any other superhero show I had watched in a long time. And more than this, Invincible had something going for it that I absolutely adored. Something that I have praised the show for since I first saw it. Watching Invincible felt exactly like reading a comic book. Even more so than Into and Across the Spider-Verse ever did, which is something that I credit to those films very heavily. But with Invincible, it was something completely new. The formula was so intriguing. Introducing characters and plot lines just for them to go away and come back at any moment, all while still having a central, overarching plotline. That being the mystery of why Omni-Man killed the Guardians. Season 1 of Invincible felt like the perfect mix of comic book and TV show, and I believe that was the most unique quality of the show. While I still enjoyed seasons 2 and 3, they completely lost that balance that I loved, and I think it really starts to emphasize the show's flaws. Season 2 leans further into the comic book side of things, introducing and bringing back old characters like it's absolutely nothing, and always ending those stories with the character able to return at any moment. Due to this, the overarching story takes a huge backseat this season. While Angstrom Levy was a more important villain than most, I wouldn't call his plotline an overarching plot, since he only really shows up in 2 episodes. And the Viltrumite conflict, which is the true overarching plot of the whole show, gets 5 episodes and like a scene, instead of having some portion of every episode dedicated to it, like Season 1 did. Season 2 of Invincible spends less time on the central conflict of the show than I would have liked. However, this doesn't need to be a bad thing, especially when it's in service to something else. In Invincible's case, that something else is a theme. All of Season 2 focuses on Mark trying everything possible to not become his father. While he has always valued life, the foundation for his no-kill rule is truly to be as different from his father as possible. Unfortunately, at every turn he finds himself more and more like his dad, at least in his own eyes. From his relationship with Amber to his relationship with Cecil, until finally he kills Angstrom Levy. Season 3 is when the comic book format, and more importantly lack of story progression, becomes the most apparent and the most annoying, and I am no longer able to just look past it. During Season 3, every single returning character has ridiculously leveled up, while the show still shoves constant new characters down your throat and never in any meaningful way gets rid of any of them. And what is going on with the Viltrumite plot? Fuck if I know! They address it once all season. Okay, I'm lying a little bit. They address it slightly more than that. They address it for like 10 minutes in one episode, then for a scene in another, and then the final episode, which is the big fight. I am sorry, the show can still be good, it can still be addressing interesting themes, which by the way, I do think it is, but that's just dumb. That's not how TV shows work. You can't ignore the core conflict of a show all season and then give us one admittedly amazing fight that just leaves us exactly where we were before. We left this conflict with Anissa telling Mark to do a bunch of shit, he said, nope, never. And she was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna leave now, give you the chance to do all the things you said you'd never do, and check in on you in a bit. And at the end of Season 3, Conquest comes, gets beaten, and now we're just waiting for the Viltrumites to come back. Again. This season deals with Mark starting to understand the world as gray, instead of just black and white. That's the theme of the whole season, and it's a great theme. It's also explored well enough, but everything else takes so much of a backseat that it's just annoying. It's to the point that some plot lines are handled way too fast or lazily. Things are handled in so much of a rush that sometimes it ends up hurting the theme as well. For instance, the point of Cecil and Mark's falling out in episode 1 was supposed to highlight Mark's naiveness and Cecil constantly working in the gray. Instead, Mark just comes off as an overreacting child who escalated everything for absolutely no reason. You'll notice that things move very quickly in Season 1, get a little faster in Season 2, and everything just happens at light speed in Season 3. The characters never get a break. In Season 1, it felt as if Mark's life was being often interrupted by superhero conflicts. But by Season 3, all of Mark's life is being a superhero, which is kind of the point, but I just don't think it works well on screen. Literally the second a conflict ends, the next one begins. In Season 1 of the show, it took time to have very character-driven moments. Every conversation between Omni-Man and Mark has huge significance in the moment and takes on double meaning after the battle in Chicago. Meanwhile, Season 3 doesn't really have that, except for the same repeating conversation with Eve on the same rooftop over and over again. Because of the fast-paced nature of the show, and that speed only increasing with Seasons 2 and 3, certain decisions Mark makes end up feeling childish, not thought out, or unjustified. For example, in Season 2, Mark decides that he is going to work under Cecil and follow orders. And he does this because it's something that his dad never did, and it further separated them in his eyes. But he goes back on his word so quickly that him agreeing to serve Cecil almost didn't mean anything to begin with. And that is the core of why this admittedly refreshing comic book-like formula for a show simply doesn't work well. Too much happens, and therefore nothing happens. What I mean by that is that any major event or repercussions don't really affect the world or change the status quo in any way. And that's because we're dealing with a comic book world, where the status quo has already been absolutely annihilated multiple times per episode. I don't feel anything when characters die and come back. I don't feel anything when cities get destroyed or rebuilt. And I don't feel anything when there's a giant multiversal event that leaves a protagonist devastated. All because these things happen within 5 minutes and the characters barely even get to deal with it, if at all, to make time for the next comic plotline. Invincible has never been perfect, but the flaws it does have were easy to overlook at first. I'm willing to forego logic and even story at times for the sake of exploring a theme. However, when these flaws start directly affecting the themes as well, I have to draw the line. Something like Angstrom surviving his fight with Mark at the end of Season 2 is just annoying. Until you remember how impactful his death is supposed to be to the character of Mark Grayson, and how big of a deal the show makes of Mark's first kill. With this context, Angstrom surviving is borderline unforgivable. Mark has now gone from, "I can't possibly kill," to, "I can't believe I killed," to, "Fine, I'll kill," to, "Yeah, everyone is gonna die next time." And this whole journey has happened with him killing one person, and it barely counts. It was murder-suicide. A show this fast-paced couldn't possibly explore the themes that they are going for as effectively and patiently as those themes deserve. Not every plotline is important. Not every plotline deserves equal time and significance. I'm sorry, but the Rock guy and his crime empire is just not the same level as something like a multiversal Invincible War or the battle against Conquest. Yet they all feel equal by the end of Season 3, which makes them all feel unimportant. Season 1 felt like a unique take on the villain of the week formula. The show made damn sure that every villain of the week was expanded upon and became more important as the show progressed. However, this backfired, because by the end of Season 3, the show is so crowded that even central villains to the core conflict come off as villains of the week. I truly believe that Season 1 of Invincible found the perfect balance between comic book and TV show. But with each passing season, they lose that balance in service of leaning further into the comic book side of things. And after Season 3, I am convinced that this formula simply does not work well for a TV show. Thank you guys so much for watching. This video is a lot shorter than my last one, and part of that is because I just don't have as much to say about Invincible. but what I did have to say, I haven't really heard many people talk about. So I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all next time.